Hello. The rover is here. So this is the demo rover. The actual rover is with my grandparents at the moment. So if you log yourself into Telegram and join this group, you should. Oh, someone is okay. You should be able to control the car, and the car sends you how it moved forward. No one? Really? Okay. So, I planned 5 minutes of time because you would be so enthusiastic about joining the group and driving it. They would be competing each other because it can only execute one command at a time, because I wrote it for myself only. The actual rover is here. It is in another country with my grandparents, so I can go visit them whenever I want. Oh, Daniel, hi. Now you can also do stuff. You should receive it with the invitation, actually, didn't you? Okay. There's go forward, there's middle, so middle sets the wheels at the middle. There's also go backward, but you cannot give them alone, so you have to write a parameter, 50 centimeters. And then it goes back. At the same time, it takes a video, and it sends you the video. It takes quite a lot of time, because it has to encode it and then upload it. Yeah. So, yeah, this is the rover. You should talk to the group. Yeah. This was Daniel's command. So I'm going to talk about my experiences building this, because I could have used them myself. I mean, if I were giving this talk to my past self 1 year ago, I could have spared a lot of work. So I hope I'm going to do the same for you. If you have similar projects, it doesn't have to be similar. Some of the advice applies to all of the projects with the Raspberry Pi. So let's begin. Yeah. Yes. Quite distracting. So this is the third home roamer. Home roamer, I named it home roamer because it roams a home. The first one was, well, there was no Raspberry Pi at the time, so I took two old smartphones, and then I duct tape light-dependent resistors on it, and then I tried to do it with Skype. Didn't work. It was just a box, like very primitive. It didn't work. So the second one, I bought a pre-made kit, but this wasn't really so good, so I modified it, and I can actually turn this off. I modified it. This didn't really work as well. I mean, this is just ugly. And the last one, this is also ugly, but at least it works. It has been working for months now without any interference. This is just slow, ugly. It reboots. I don't know why, but it works. It is reliable. So this is the, for future reference, I'm going to put it here if you want to look. It's just a motor controller, some lights, and this other fruit, PowerBoost 1000C. That's, I'm going to talk about it. And then this is a Raspberry Pi with a camera hole, but there's no wireless. I mean, there was no wireless at the time, so it's just the USB slot is going to be busy. So electronics, the first choice, of course, which Raspberry Pi? I wanted to go with the Raspberry Pi 3 because it's I wanted to be able to Skype with my grandparents, and for that I needed the power, but 2 amperes, it's just too much. And while it is so when it's so demanding, any fluctuations in the current can cause it to reboot. It didn't really work, so I went to Raspberry Pi 0. This was limiting, but at least you can drive it in another country. And then there's this chip. If they send it, it will be even better than the Raspberry Pi, but they don't send it. So Raspberry Pis are very sensitive, I've heard, but my worries were not really founded. So I touched them, I soldered them with 500 degrees, nothing, it works. Short, so don't worry. My advice to my past self would be not to worry. This was, yeah, so some of the pins are high on boot by default. Maybe you know this, maybe you don't. But this might cause you some surprise, because on boot, if your pins are high, and if these pins are connected to your motors, then every time you reboot your rover, it goes like this. It's not good, maybe it will go out of the dock. So I would suggest that you take care of this. There's a list online, so this is also something I didn't understand. Wireless connection just keeps breaking. I don't know why. I changed the dongle. It seemed to work better, but it's still not perfect. I would, if I were my today's self, I would just buy a serial USB serial connector. It's just €3, €5. It saves you a lot of time. I was afraid of lithium batteries because I don't want to kill my grandparents in a fire. So, yeah. Over discharge, I've heard so many things. I just decided to ignore it. And so far, my grandparents are alive, so I guess it's okay. You shouldn't have to worry about the lithium batteries. Pass-through charging, yes. Powering the Raspberry Pi was the biggest challenge, because it has to be able to dock itself. For that, I considered several options, like inductive charging or Roomba style. It's just didn't work. So the solution I found was just a magnetic USB cable. This works really good. This piece stays on the top of the rover, and then this is hanging from the ceiling, and then it catches it. So this works pretty well, but yeah, it will also go. It will start not to function properly after a while. So pass-through chargers are this other fruit thing that is on board. It supports pass-through charging. Pass-through charging is being able to charge the battery and being able to power your circuit at the same time. So I ordered something online, just a regular power bank. They told it would do this pass-through charging, but it didn't. So I spent €25 on nothing. So I wouldn't buy it if I were my today's self. Movement, yes, you can buy very cheap motors, but they are going to draw a lot of current, and this is a mobile application. It could be deadly. So DC motors are not very precise. They always go rather to the right or rather to the left. I've found something online. Apparently, even from the same batch, the two DC motors are never the same. Under the same voltage, they might spin at different rates, and this is the case. So maybe in the future, I'm going to use some stepper motors, or I'll hack some servos. I don't know. Maybe it will work. Or you can use 2 PWM pins on the Raspberry Pi. That's also an option. But the simplest way is also working. and I'm using a dual H bridge, nothing special here. Yes, this was also very confusing for me. So one pin has 3 different names: Broadcom pin number and the physical pin number, and then the wiring pie library has their own number. It's just so confusing. So my advice to my past self would, I mean, you can search Google, and there are pages, but nothing is so concise. I don't know. Just use BCM and then go to this website, pin out XYZ. That's all you need. But no one told me on the internet. I don't know why. The software I'm using, cronjobs, are very useful. So they come the first. It's having a plan B. So, for example, if I said I lose the wireless connection, so if you check the connection every 20 minutes or so, and then if you go do a reboot, if the connection is lost, then you always have a backup plan. You always have your access back. Or there are other examples. You can check when you're home if you want to see. So one of them is like static IP, I think dynamic IP, I don't know. So your home router has an IP, but it changes. But if you do a cron job, yeah, it doesn't have to change. But even that is not needed when you're driving with Telegram. Live video streaming. Yes, this was one of my dreams since watching the movie Home Alone 3. There was this kid driving his RC car with a camera. MJPEG streamer is the best option, but even that is not so fast on a Raspberry Pi Zero. Motion is very slow, but that's not for streaming. And I tried to do some bash piping, and so that also didn't work. But a friend of mine has written something on his own, and he tested it with Raspberry Pi Zero. So that's what I'm going to use in the future. That's also what I could recommend. I've heard it's not so difficult at all. So how do you control the GPIO? Well, go with Python, I would say. C, it took too much time for me. Although I didn't know any Python, and I've been programming C for more than 10 years, but still Python was easier because you are not doing too much there, just on and off. Just go with Python, I would say. And yeah, this is the screenshot from my cell phone. Android phones have this split screen ability. You can use Juice SSH, so if you have Android, it supports this split screen functionality. Yeah, live control is impossible if you are behind a firewall or something. So if I'm in the university, behind the university network, for example, I cannot really drive. So to go around this, I could use VPN, but this is also very costly. VPN and SSH, they don't really work. It's too slow, and after 10 minutes, it just breaks. So I decided to use Telegram, also for SSH. So you might actually have root access on this thing, everyone. I don't know if I've made a mistake, yes, but hopefully not. So I do everything from Telegram now. If you have I originally designed it as a smart home controlling type of bot, like open the lights and then open the door and such, but this rover is much more fun, so. But this is, as you have noticed from the group, it is not really live anymore, so it has to do a lot of steps. It shoots a video, then encodes it, and then sends it to you, and it's just a Raspberry Pi Zero, so. But, yeah, this is, this latency is an enemy of the usability, because driving to the next room takes just too long. So maybe, I saw this event, der Staubsauger und the KI. So if I were to somehow code an AI, even a simple one, it could save me a lot of time. It could just go to the room on itself, or I don't know, for example, the door is brighter than everywhere else. It could just follow it somehow in the future, maybe. So I'm going to read her. Maybe he has some tips for us, Daniel. And this is how I do the GIFs. MP4 box is, I had to look for it for quite a while. But it works, it's easy to install, no problems. I would recommend this one. Yeah, this is how it's just how I made it, yes. It's just a Python request, so you can check the Telegram bot API. It's online. They also have a wrapper, a Python wrapper. You can also use my code, but it's just spaghetti, so good luck. And with Telegram, you have to be careful about certain things. Telegram is designed as a chat program, so these bash symbols, if you are familiar with them, I don't know, this two of these little arrows, they mean right to the end of the file. And it is useful, and I want to use it, but I cannot because Telegram converts it to something else. Well, there are ways around it, but yeah, it's difficult. And you have a maximum message length. I'm sure you can think of ways to go around that. But these two websites, command line bin, it's like paste bin, but you can access it from the command line. It's useful even if you have nothing to do with the Raspberry Pi. And this transfer SH, it's also like paste bin, but for files. So I would recommend you to use it. Mechanical and physical problems, these are the funny ones. I'm just amazed how I wasn't able to think of these. For example, self-docking. This, after I decided to use a magnetic cable, it never occurred to me that this force is quite important, because if it's too little, it just doesn't catch, and if it's too much, it catches and it holds it. It holds it back, so what you get is your rover goes like this. Sometimes it topples over, sometimes it doesn't. So it's a bit of luck, but anything you buy, if it's too strong, add some extra weight. And there's this thing I made of cardboard, so it catches as this comes to so the robot comes to the cable, and it catches it using this cardboard contraption that I made out of duct tape as well. Camera location is very important, so the second home rover that I mentioned, it was a ready-made kit. Sunfounder smart car. It is also this one. I mean, it's modified. It used to look like this, and they put the camera at the front. This is not good because sometimes the connection breaks, and then before I could brake, the rover just keeps on walking, and then it goes into a wall. No straight. The camera and this tower of servos, they just mess up. So I realized that I have to put the camera on the rear side. So I did, and it had another advantage. You get to see yourself. I mean, the rover is if it's at the front, it's just the environment. But if it's at the back side, then you see the rover's body, so you can see where the objects are in relation to it. If you're designing something, put it at the back. And also add a fisheye camera, because these are just too narrow. Webcams are too narrow for this sort of application. I glued on a fisheye lens. It worked. So you can do the same, or you can buy a camera with a fisheye lens. And I see that the camera is pointing upwards. Yeah, we could yeah, later. The center of gravity. Yeah, so I mean, why would you put the battery at the top, at the very top? That's too heavy. But I didn't think of this, so it's been toppling over on me. I can do anything. The friction is important because it cannot climb any obstacles otherwise, so I use just anti-slip mats. And like there are stupid mistakes. I bought this adapter, but it blocks the power input, so I would advise myself not to do this sort of mistakes. And also put some lights, because at night you don't see anything. And adding lights and such, it's impossible if you have something like this. It's just too small, and it's just a cable salad in there. The cables are too short, so if you just don't do it, don't build inside the box. Make it flat. That's much more maintainable. And then here is the beauty, once again, for you to see. And that's all from me. If you have any questions, you can ask. If you still want to play with it, I'll just fix the camera. That's all. Thank you.
The problem with the Wi-Fi connection is only maybe because of the power?
Possible. I don't know why.
Same issues with the robot which I'm working on, and I have now a stronger power bank. With this one, it seems it works better.
Possible. I don't know why. I cannot really go with a bigger power bank because Adafruit just makes them at 1000 milliamperes. That's the biggest they have. So I need to build something else. But yeah, thanks for the tip, maybe. That's why. There's still a lot of things that I don't understand about this, but it just works. So.
Can you repeat the question?
Oh yes, the question was, could this this problem with the Wi-Fi, the interruptions, maybe it's caused by the lack of the power. So maybe if you increase the power of the supply, it will go away. I don't know. I cannot increase the power. I'll just put it there. Any other questions, or I'm packing up? No?
So I was wondering how much time you've already spent on the rover, and also what would it cost to rebuild the rover in its current state?
Okay, so let's go. This is a good example actually. So Raspberry Pi, you already know. The camera is a waveshare fisheye lens. This is a bit pricey. I think 35 euros. Oh, the question. I'm sorry. So the question was how much would it cost to rebuild this robot in its current state? And the answer is about 100, 150 euros, I think, if you exactly buy the same materials, but you can look for equivalents that are cheaper. For example, the tracks that I'm using, so those are from Solar Botics. It's an American company. They sell tracks and 2 gear motors for about $40 or $50. But I already had them for another project, so it was free for me. And the cheese box is very cheap. Then there's this Raspberry Pi, 5 euros. Yeah, and then the camera cable. Yeah, you have to buy a separate camera cable for the Raspberry Pi Zero because it's, yeah. And then there are some circuitry, like a breadboard, but they are under 10 euros, I would say. It's around here. And the battery, about 12 euros. So, oh yes, and the magnetic charging cable, 10 euros. Also a USB adapter, that's also 5 euros maybe. So yeah. If I were to sell it, 100, 150.
Any other questions? Then I'd like to thank you for coming here and presenting your project.
Thank you.